share my screen? Oh, actually, can you enable me to share my screen? I guess that's the next question. Okay. It says host disabled screen sharing. Can you enable me to share my screen?
I'm working on it.
Okay, great.
It's coming.
Oh, yeah. Oh. Yeah.
Yep.
Great. Okay, I'll try again. Okay. Okay, great. So you can see my screen?
Yep.
Great. Okay. So thank you so much for having us here this evening. I'll try to go through it fairly quickly, but it sounds like there are some people in the audience still who have not heard the presentation before, and then we'll leave lots of time for your questions. So sorry, what happened? There should be another screen there. Okay. So I'm sorry, seem to be missing a screen. I don't know what happened to it, but basically that screen says that the Village of Canton is exploring the option to participate in an upcoming bid to consider an electricity supply contract through a program that would be called the Village of Canton Community Power Program. And that program would provide their eligible residents and small businesses with the benefits of renewable or standard electricity supply. So this type of program is what's called Community Choice Aggregation Program, or CCA. So let's start by understanding what CCA is. CCA programs are essentially municipalities come together to create a large aggregate or buying group through which their residents and small businesses may purchase their electricity supply. These programs enable municipalities to leverage the buying power of that large group. So in this case, it's thousands of households to negotiate competitive rates for residents and small businesses. I should mention that while the Village of Canton will be its community power program, if the village decides to go ahead, would be its own entity. The actual negotiating is together with 10 other municipalities that include the town of Potsdam locally, Saranac Lake, but also other communities across New York State. Another way of saying this is that CCA programs shift the selection of this default supplier from the state that many decades ago selected National Grid as your utility down to the level of your local municipality, closer to the actual consumer. It allows for the default choice to support renewable energy and at competitive rates. CCA programs were authorized by the Public Service Commission in 2016, and they are overseen by the Public Service Commission today. So the benefits, very quickly, are support for renewable electricity, competitive rates, strong consumer protection, and more choice for consumers. I'll go over each of those in more detail. In 2019, New York State passed groundbreaking climate legislation, which mandates the transition for the electric grid to be powered by really an unprecedented transformation of the electric grid to be powered 70% by renewable energy by 2030. So that's less than 7 years away at this point. And by 2040, it must be 100% carbon free. These are very ambitious goals that will ultimately help to protect our own communities. And this type of program helps communities take a major step toward meeting those goals. I've heard climate regulators in New York State say this is one of the most powerful climate actions that local government can take. CCA is a growing movement across the country and in New York State. In New York State, there are over 156 communities that are either currently in CCA programs or, like the Village of Canton, exploring participation and moving ahead through the process to possibly participate in a CCA program. From July 2021 to June 2022, New York CCA programs have saved over $28 million and served 257,000 customers across 64 municipalities. I also want to mention that CCA started in New York State with a pilot program in 2016 in Westchester, and today 2/3 of Westchester communities are participating in a CCA program. So let's take a little closer look at how this actually works. In New York State, the utilities no longer actually supply the electricity. In the late 1990s, the Public Service Commission divided up supply and delivery in order to foster more competition and lower costs for consumers. And since that time, the utility essentially has become the middleman, delivering the energy, repairing and maintaining the lines, and billing the customers. What actually changes with CCA is the source of the electricity supply would be provided through the CCA program, and there's the option for renewable electricity. With CCA, another way to say it, National Grid continues to deliver the electricity, repair and maintain the lines, bill the customers. They are still the ones to call in the event of power outages. You can see this reflected on your bill. This is page 2 of a National Grid bill. Even within the electricity section of your bill, there are 2 subsections. The lower part where the green arrow is this actual supply. That's the part where you would see some changes. You would see the supplier and you would see the new price through the CCA program. The delivery portion is on top. That remains unchanged. That's National Grid, what they're actually doing, and they continue to do the delivery, as I mentioned. So who is eligible? Just talking now, shifting to some of the logistics for the program. Most National Grid customers are eligible to participate. Those who are eligible are automatically enrolled in the program, but can opt out at any time. There are some customers who are not automatically enrolled or not eligible. The biggest category is probably customers who are already contracted with a third-party electricity supplier or ESCO, Energy Service Company. And those customers are, technically speaking, they are eligible if they opt out of their ESCO contract, but they will not be automatically enrolled. They will not receive the packet of information in the mail from their municipality if the municipality decides to proceed. Customers with a block on their account, again, will not receive that packet. Home Energy Assistance Program or HEAP recipients are not considered eligible. Customers on time of use accounts also not considered eligible, and larger commercial customers are, or this is really for house residents and for small businesses. Larger demand customers, which are generally commercial customers, are not considered eligible. Eligible customers will be automatically enrolled unless they take action before the program begins. And there are 3 ways they can opt out of the program. It's very easy. Obviously, we hope they will want to participate, but we want to make the point very clear that it's very easy to opt out if they choose to do so. They can do so by phone. You would need your either the number on the mailing or your account number and the name on the account, and then it takes 2 minutes to do so. There's also a prepaid opt-out card in the mailing. All you have to do is just sign your name, I want out, put the date on it, stick it in the postage paid envelope, stick it in your mailbox, and you're out of the program. Or you can unenroll yourself opt out of the program on a form on the website. Again, all you need is your account number or the mailing number and the name on the account. Okay, so let's look at the timeline. All eligible customers, so those, except for those categories that were listed on the slide a couple of slides ago, will receive a packet in the mail if the village decides to proceed in spring or summer of 2023. In that packet, there will be a letter explaining the benefits, terms, and conditions. Again, it repeats the same information about how to opt out, and it also provides the rates and more information about information sessions and frequently asked questions. There's a 30-day opt-out period once people receive that mailing, but anybody can opt out during the program with no exit fees, no participation fees. You can also opt back in if you want to. So what's the difference between the 30-day opt-out period and opting out afterwards? The difference is that if you don't opt out during the opt-out period, then you'll be automatically moved into the program. And then it takes generally one billing cycle to move you out of the program, sometimes 2 billing cycles, depending on when your billing cycle falls. That's the only difference. You can always opt out or opt back in or change your enrollment within the program. After the 30-day opt-out period, then the program actually launches. We expect that will be summer or early fall of 2023. At that point, anybody who is in the program would be identified. They would see the new supplier who's selected through a bidding process and the new rate on page 2 of the bill where I showed you the supply charges. And then the program moves ahead. Okay, I'm going to go quickly through some frequently asked questions. It repeats a little, but I think it's worth reinforcing. Does the program replace your utility? No. You continue to pay your utility bill. Your utility remains responsible for delivery and maintenance of the electric grid. Does this impact the reliability of your electricity? No. The utility continues to provide the exact same service whether you participate in the program or not. Will this program save you money? Savings are not guaranteed in the program. What if I want to change my supply choice? Once the program launches, you may call the helpline, and maybe Glenn can talk a little bit more about the savings aspect of the program. What if I want to change my supply choice? Once the program launches, you may call the helpline or fill out the enrollment change form on the website to change your selection, opt out or opt back into the program with no fees or penalties. I just want to also quickly address the question of, will this program save you money? So all of our active or recently concluded contracts have saved households money on their electricity supplies, supply costs, and we can supply more information about that if you would like. Okay. Do you have to stay in the program the entire time? No. As we've just said, you may opt out or opt back in anytime. Can you participate if you have your own solar panels or if you participate in community solar? Yes. Even if you use solar power, you are still required to have a supplier on your electric bill to cover any electricity not provided by your solar. What happens when the program ends? When the contract ends, your municipality may choose to renew participation in the program. If not, you would be automatically switched back to the utility, selecting your supply on your behalf. I want to just quickly review, because we've just spent a lot of time on logistics, just some of the benefits of the program. Very important. At least 50% renewable electricity is available as an option, as the default option, if that's what the village chooses. There is the potential for cost savings. There are no individual contracts for consumers, very strong consumer protection. No individual contracts, no exit fees at any time. And that's it. Now we're ready for your questions. I'm glad to put this back up later, but I'll stop sharing. I'm glad to put this screen back up later on. Okay.
What's the history of rates compared to what, say, National Grid charges in our area versus what you're seeing is typical?
Glenn, do you want to address that?
Sure. So typically speaking, with CCAs in New York State and other states and other similar states, you can expect about a 5 to 10% savings against utility rates over time. In any given short period of time. It's quite unpredictable. There could be a lot of savings, there could be no savings. As Peggy said, you know, for over the last year, over 2022, most, if not all, CCA programs have saved fairly significantly. You know, that's not a guarantee of future performance with a fixed rate. However, and for the most part, CCA programs in New York State have a fixed rate contract, which means that the rate is the same every month for the whole duration of the contract. So if it's a 24-month contract, the rate is the same in all 24 months. Typically, the utility rate will be higher in some months, lower in others, but over that 24-month period, you can expect, you know, some modest savings against the utility rate. However, there are not fixed rate, you know, we've seen really tremendous volatility in the market, not just in New York State, but all over the world, frankly, for energy markets and electricity markets, largely stemming from the Russian invasion. But there's all sorts of factors that have contributed to really like unprecedented levels of volatility. And in periods of very high volatility, so the energy suppliers, this includes utility pricing too. You may have noticed that utility pricing was way up last year, or has been, and it continues into this year. Although we are seeing a milder than expected winter, which is driving some pricing down, which is good. But in periods of high volatility, fixed rate contracts tend to get more expensive because suppliers will price into their fixed price that uncertainty. We don't know, you know, in periods of high volatility, we don't know what the price is going to do. And for that reason, suppliers will typically build in a little extra fat into the price, so to speak. So we're seeing more and more programs start to consider a variable rate as well as a fixed rate. A variable rate that has a control on it, meaning that it has to stay within a certain, you know, distance from market rates or from utility rates. So that's another way that you can think. It's, you know, and often like home heating oil contracts will work that way. So it's fairly familiar structure. It just hasn't been used that much with CCA in New York, but it's a fairly common kind of energy contract. And as we get closer, you know, to that sort of procurement process that Peggy described, we'll talk you through that a little bit more, you know, what we're seeing out in the market, and advise you as to which rate structure we think makes the most sense. We'll also collect some indicative pricing before the RFP actually goes out. We'll get some indicative pricing from suppliers and get a sense of where we think the, you know, what the market is kind of telling us makes the most sense at that time. So, you know, I know that's a long-winded way to answer your question. There's no sort of like, you know, a very consistent, predictable kind of savings rate, but for the most part, it's about 5 or 10%.
What's the typical take rate in a community like ours?
About 85% or so, meaning of the eligible folks. So not everybody's eligible. Peggy went through kind of the groups of customers that are not eligible, but of those that are eligible, about 85% will take it and 15% will opt out. Over time, people move out, people will leave the program, people will come into the program. So you sort of see that ebb a little, you know, ebb and flow a little bit over time, but it's about 85%.
So we would have the option of the variable rate if that looked preferable at the point of the.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's your call. You know, we'll make all of those different options available to you, and it'll be your decision. We'll advise, of course, but it'll be your decision ultimately how you want to go there.
I have two questions about like who's eligible. So the cutoff for business is volume. And so what metric do you use to say you qualify or not?
It's volume, but it's pretty binary. So the actual distinction is whether or not the business is a demand meter customer or
Okay.
not. And that actually, it refers to a physical meter, different, so the meter that you'd have on a residential home is different than the meter that you'd have on a large business. And it refers to also a rate structure. So demand metered customers are charged not just a rate. So residential customers are charged just a rate, whatever the monthly rate is, multiplied by how many kilowatt hours they use that month. Larger customers have a rate for how much they use, and then they have what's called the demand charge, which actually measures the peak of their consumption, their demand, at any point in that month, times a different rate. And the reason for that is because the utility has to be able to manage large users, sometimes sort of unexpectedly using a lot, for whatever reason, because they're a manufacturing, or whatever reason. So they charge them differently too, to make sure that they are addressing the costs associated with serving those customers. And the businesses will know, they'll know based on their bills whether or not they have a demand charge or not, or at least they could look if they don't know. So it is binary. There's not like an uncertainty about whether or not you're on one side of the fence or not, but you may just have to look at your bill to make sure.
And do you have a figure on how many ESCO customers are in Canton? Can you get that data from National Grid, or that's just remains to be seen?
We have a very good estimate, and I
Okay.
can look it up. I could look it up right now.
Just curious. That's just a
Yeah.
curious.
We'll get later in the process, we'll get exact information from National Grid.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. The first is it possible to default to 100% renewable?
Yeah, almost nearly all of the communities that we work with do, in fact.
And then another question is, folks here will have been likely aware of, due to press and such, the concerns around ESCOs down south that have not been able to fulfill their contracts. So I know that is part of this conversation in the community, and I was wondering if you could speak to our risk and what we should be considering going forward given those risks.
Yeah, and it is, so as I said, this past year has been a fairly remarkable one with respect to energy markets. But then again, we find ourselves saying that a lot lately, right? We said that with COVID, and now we're saying it again for different reasons. What we saw, and this was not a CCA problem per se, though it did affect CCAs. CCAs are large contracts for suppliers, so it puts stress on especially mid-sized suppliers to be able to keep up with the requirements of the contract, especially fixed rate contracts, as I mentioned earlier. So that has that experience has obviously forced us to take a long look at our model, right, and how CCAs are being managed in New York State, and especially around three primary areas. One is just the contract itself, making sure, so we've done a full review of our contract, making sure that we have filled in all the cracks that we could with related to sort of, really clarifying the ESCO's requirements and the consequences of failure. But to be honest with you, if you have what we've seen in the last year is not just suppliers sort of worming their way out of a contract, but rather leaving the market entirely. So in order to break the contract, they actually had to make the decision not to serve customers in New York State, period, anymore. And that was a financial decision made out of desperation. But that is the decision that they took, to leave the market, to give up all of their rights to serve customers in New York State, not just CCAs. So that's a fairly extreme, action. And you guys know, it's like, you can write a contract as bulletproof as you want. If a counterparty wants to simply completely default and fail on a obligation, they can do so. I mean, there's legal recourse, of course, to breaching a contract, but it's very hard contractually to stop them from doing something like that. So the more important measures that we are taking, in my view, beyond just the legal changes, are to really shrink the pool of suppliers that we are willing to work with going forward. And that comes with a price, because it means that you are limiting your competition to some extent. So these bids, they used to have 5, 6, or 6 bids. Going forward, they'll probably have more like 2 or 3 bids. But those that are left in the room that are bidding on these going forward are really the sort of the blue chip ESCOs in New York State, the ones with the big balance sheets and the ones with the long track record, and those that we don't have to worry about, the same sort of, default that we've seen in the last year. And then the third is just what I talked about earlier, is to start to look at different rate structures, different contract structures, get a little more creative and figure out ways to protect consumers, but also make sure that the suppliers have enough flexibility to serve the customers and to sort of work with market movement, even if it's fairly extreme like it has been in the last year.
Thank you. Anything else?
Glenn, can you just address the question of were there losses to communities, financial losses to communities through these problems?
No, the only loss was the savings that they would have realized had the contracts continued, right? So those contracts, because of the stress that was placed on the supplier, that meant that customers were saving a lot of money. I think Peggy put up a slide earlier. CCAs in last year saved $28 million or something like that. A lot of that was from these programs, frankly. These customers saved a lot of money before the contracts were severed. So the only loss was the loss of future expected savings that were not realized because the supplier was not able to continue. So that is an important point. It's a shame nonetheless, but there were not damages per se in terms of realized losses, but rather sort of deferred savings or yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Just one further question. I know, Peggy, that you've been doing and have more of these public education sessions planned. Could you let us know about those so that folks can get the word out?
Absolutely. It's completely my pleasure. Yes, we're working hard to, as Klaus knows, we're trying very hard to promote these sessions. Yes. And I'm very glad to have any help with promoting them.
We have the posters right here, Peggy, that we'll be distributing.
Great. Thank you so much for your help with that.
Barb,
No,
you have a
I
question?
completely
Sorry,
agree
I
about the importance of getting the word to the community. Yep.
I think, is the events list up to date on your website that lists all the,
I believe it is now up to date. Yes.
so
It
it has
is.
all the dates on there.
Yes.
You'll be.
And by the way, at this point, the information for Canton and Potsdam are really identical, so as somebody could come to either of the events.
Okay, good to know.
Okay, any other questions? Anybody in the audience?
Think we're good.
I think we're good, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Well, thank you for having us. Okay, okay.
Okay, well. Good time, we can move right into calling our monthly meeting to order. And the first item is approve minutes. 12/21, 1/11, and 1/18. I could use a motion for that. So moved. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Hi.
Any opposed? Okay, I forgot to say a couple things. First of all, our attorney at court tonight, in another town. Lee is gonna try to join us. She had to be out of town. And of course, Barb is online. There
Quarantine,
is,
Hi, Mark.
quarantining.
well, that's up to you to say.
No, I know. That's why I'm here, the quarantine. My husband tested positive for COVID and I'm in that, unknown contagion phase. So I thought I'd spare everybody.
Well, we wish you luck.
Everybody's doing great, so no problem there. So.
There's two items to add to the agenda under 6, item G. And this was my doing, to approve Joe Mastro as a hire for as a police officer. And I wanted to mention something under new business about our budget sessions. I didn't warn you, but I thought you were gonna bring it up. Okay, with that being said, let's move on to department head reports. And let's see, Lee's on the top, so let's wait and see if she comes along. Historians report.
I'm so glad I made it. I have been away for the last 2 months, not away. So busy. I do not have Brandon's benefit with Brandon's Barrett. Because he goes in line. I said. Every day is when. Hey, Mayor, encourage me. That was fun.
Well, good.
But it's been wonderful for the community. I guess, but need of the community, what is going on. Based on the lady was back to Canton, she was born in Vermont, she was very in high school. And they are coming from the Canton South, she was in 3 days. Trying to get these herself in the year ago. And she's copying it. And Roger Valley is what one who's school out there. It's constant. I only have on cases. She comes in like 5 hours. But COVID has she could work every other week. So, are there any questions on the report? Did you get my report?
Yep.
Okay. I haven't heard from the ladies from the class that was going to do the mentor for 2 weeks. They're coming to do that. The mural project that is hard. The pictures of the mural at the door. So, when that comes, whoever building would like that on there, they'll get on that. The other thing that I was excited about while I'm reading this is road, you all got a copy of it. That's pretty right for a while. Yes, sir. Me is constant. I love it. So enjoyable. People come in with nothing. Like white, they have to take it like you should park in front and let it go. And get the white shirt, most of you know the white shirt is our famous attire. His daughter had body church. and the board of the bar. He came in, he's 89. He went in every office, he looked at every picture, and that's my house, he did this, and she used to find the plane in the car. Takes some, so I cannot tell you the information. Only Thursday at the site of White House, by Brian. He's in California, and he's talking on Black. But the exciting thing, I might. Tom interviewed Richard Phillips Hayes, our editor. Richard is an interesting character, as some of the, and I befriended him more than a year. He wrote 3 books on white slavery, all down the South. And they were 2 more, probably in one of the poems that we saw. So Tom was there with me in my office, and he played with me in the guitar, and the little. These were the K.
The kalimba.
Yes, so he is gonna have a book, we're gonna have a book signed in my office, the last Sunday, February. Tom, I want to do that day. So 1 to 3, he's coming to sign books and playing for an hour. And he played for Tom. It was great. So that'll be announced, and playing with every Tom is going in this week.
I just found out about today.
They talked for over an hour. And played. So hopefully that'll get in, and that'll be my first book signing and being. Any questions?
We're excited for it.
Yeah,
I
Okay.
think that's great.
looking good over there,
So the
Linda.
village stayed, yes.
Looking
Thank
real
you
good.
for the village. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
okay.
Recreation. Well, Megan.
We have a new life reserve.
Yeah.
The new machine's really nice. Our Olympia representative, he's out of Minnesota, and stayed for 2 days for training. He goes over every nut and every bolt on the machine, because it comes right from the manufacturer, so it's never been driven before. So he told us to drive it hard, and he did, and with doing so, we were able to find little pinhole leaks and stuff like that, and so he overnighted parts, and they need to them all, so. Very, very good service. I can't thank him enough for him doing all that. He's also the same guy that helped us with all the replacement parts on the old machines. It's very nice. He was kind of excited to see the old machine. And then, we got about 1 more month left to ice. So we're kind of in the home stretch. But we're also kind of in bonus ice revenue time right now, and the girls varsity team for the section 10 title, so we're getting connect rights from them this week, and then boys varsity at the last week, so hopefully they do well. Other than that, we're busy.
Great.
I know, Ann and I were talking about the budget numbers. We lost a little in December just because the Christmas holiday was on a Sunday, which is one of our busiest days of the week. But preliminary number, January is up at least $4,000 last year, which I don't know how, but we did pick up the mice revenue from the same down. But our private rentals are what's really pushing us over the edge. We have a lot of people doing private rentals. We do a private birthday party special thing, so they get the icing in the upstairs together. That helps. That, so they don't have to have a party in the middle of the street. Our private rental. Everybody loves it, they have a party and they don't have kids in the house, so.
It's a bonus. Any questions for
Yeah.
Megan?
I was just gonna, not a question, but I was just gonna say that, I was up in Lake Placid and happened to overhear, I have no idea who they were, but I overheard people talking about how great our ice was. So I feel pretty good about that.
Rice is pretty good.
Yeah.
Even better now.
I'm so excited for your team to have that new machine.
It is one less headache to keep you up at night.
Well, it's not a day-to-day, hour-to-hour kind of.
Yeah, it was just,
Yes.
we were just kind of in the mode of making things work to get by, because that's what we had to do. And so it's nice having a new machine. It's got a lot of bells and whistles on it. Like our rep said, he really doesn't like it when people wait so long because he kind of gets shell shocked. Because we went from like basic 3 or 4 levers to all these buttons, and even though I got the most simple models, we could buy. But it's really a very, very, it works very well. And it's nice having 2 machines that are exactly the same size. So parts are interchangeable if we need to. Nice.
Okay, anything else? Thank you. Treasurer's report.
A couple things to add. On March 7th, there's a notary class available at BOCES here in Canton. So both the other ladies in the office are going to be attending that. There's not this test, there's the class in anticipation of the test. So they will both be attending that. And budget wise, I know there are dates that people will be out of town. If you could let me know what those dates are, so we can schedule them.
Looking at me.
So we can work around that.
Just want to see it.
Yes.
Okay, code. Tim,
Pretty quiet down here. However, I did have numerous complaints. Anywhere from loud steam vent to unplowed driveways, scene fronts, inadequate heat. Other than that, I'm pretty quiet. I'm busy with planning board meetings and design variance and conceptual review.
Can you speak louder? Tom?
I'm sure Barb can't hear on Zoom.
It isn't even the volume, it's the quality of the sound. It's like marbles. So not to worry.
I'll get the marbles out of my mouth. Speak up a little bit. So the second thing I said, I've been busy attending some meetings, a planning board meeting for 2 Main Street. The planning board wanted to do a conceptual review of that property. And so the ZBA had a sign variance hearing at 54 Park Street. Involving a sign. That's my report. Anybody have any questions?
okay, thanks, Tim. Chief,
You all have my report. I just wanted to add that I've been participating over the last few months with the St. Lawrence County's Crisis Intervention Committee. For mental health professionals, law enforcement, different agencies, different backgrounds, talking about better ways to deal with mental health, which is something that's discussed during Peace Reform. So things are being kind of fine tuned a little bit with the new facility that's on Park Street in Ogdensburg. We're going to be talking about that a little bit more coming out. The county has made available a couple of tablets that the sheriff department carries right now. I'll add a few extras, or you may end up, you can get one of those. This hasn't been officially determined, but we're really giving us one, Governor one, I think, and possibly Messina, but that's two. The only other thing I wanted to add was I'm hoping that the board would be really cool if I can talk to the director into letting me drive the Zamboni sometime, if I let her drive the police. Well, whatever, thanks for service. Kidding, by the way.
driving the police cars too, with lights.
Right.
Not riding it.
The back seat.
The town gown kind of public relations thing that could be, I don't know, is there a really big women's high school game coming up?
Uh,
Yeah.
questions for Chief? Thank you. Superintendent,
Do you think we could have them use the microphone? Because all the speakers are kind of garbly from the audience. You guys sound great, but it is hard to understand people who are in the audience.
Tim's up front here with us.
Okay,
This is
okay.
how it goes. Go ahead.
The only thing on my report that I wanted to
No,
change.
that's good.
is Underwater and sewer, yeah, I'm a lot closer than they are. The amount at the bottom of that, it's for an engineer's evaluation, I had 12,500 down. And I've had that updated and I just got it yesterday, it's now 15,000. And that's on our agenda for tonight, so that's why I wanted to clarify that.
And I did update the drive with the updated one in there, so you have access.
Outside of that. The clubhouse, I put it in there, but the clubhouse, the bathrooms are almost completed. I just went out and checked them tonight. Dave Reagan's been really doing a lot of that. And Kyle Lane's has done most of the painting out there, if not all of it. They're really looking good. Floors to put in today in the kitchen. Tile looks real nice, so it'll be just kind of a nice freshen up on the clubhouse. We plan on saving the deck when weather permits, and there's another little paving project outside, but weather changes. For that. Some people might be seeing door hangers for water meter replacement. We're working on, we just got over 100 of them. So we are in the process in-house replacing them ourselves. So they're getting all the people and scheduling it with homeowners to replace. And we're also updating the software system for collection as well. That's all kind of taking place over the next month, 2 months. And I'm hoping to budget for more meters come June. So residents can expect to see more of that going on. So.
How are you gonna do that by neighborhood?
Yeah, it's really, the guys have the routes all split up now, so they're taking the routes that if they can complete a route with all radio reads, they're gonna fill in the ones that need to be replaced, or the ones, areas that they know that they're just old meters, they're 20-year-old meters or something. They've got a system there.
Okay,
We got about 10 phone calls today, and for this, so.
good.
Fully paying attention.
Yeah.
Oh, they already got hangs up.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's good.
I was gonna say, I wonder if we want to, get something on social media about
Yeah.
it. It sounds like it's not completely necessary, but it might be a good idea.
Yeah, they're doing door hangers, so.
I got one today.
Yep.
It also just reinforces that it's real, right? People get nervous about things like, no, this is really the village, this
Yeah.
is really us, so
Yeah,
if we did some, little bit of press, maybe, be nice.
Anything else for Tim? Okay. Cindy,
Hi, good evening. You hear me?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know if that's on or not.
Um,
She speaks loud anyway, so she enunciates.
The mic's low.
So,
Is it powered?
Yeah.
Yes, plugged in.
No, but there's a,
It's actually red.
Now time.
Okay, I guess I would make a couple of things from my report. There was a mailing, that the governor had passed the bills for us to do a mandated mailing to all the property owners in Canton. We figured there was about 2,500 postcards that went out. And they were geared for the low-income seniors, to come in and apply for a low-income exemption. However, I think every senior citizen from Canton has called me. I've gotten about 200 phone calls in the last 2 weeks. It was a generic postcard. Next year, if that postcard's gotta go out, there will be an amount on there because that was the first question that came up. However, I had people call me who were in this, who are senior citizens, and they were still getting a basic star exemption. I probably had about a dozen of those still getting a basic star, and they were income qualified for the enhanced, at least the enhanced exemption. So applications were mailed out to them. So we did out a lot of different things, mailing out the postcards and everything, and I did get to learn about all the people in Canton. So that was interesting. As far as that's concerned, we don't know what's gonna happen next year. I don't know. I did get a lot of people came in for the application. I have not gotten one back, so I don't know what, it's due March 1st. So they have like 2 weeks to get it in here. So I have not gotten any back that have taken them or mailed out. Let's see. Well, does anybody have any questions on my report or anything? The village permits are done. I'm off onto doing the town permits right now, and once I get them valued, and try to close up the road. So
Okay.
there is a lot of money going into the festival road this year. So on new construction of homes, at least in the town, and a couple of commercial things. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. So, anyway. Got a number from the state for our equalization rate. And it looks like we're at 86 now, and it looks like it's gonna go to 74. So, yeah. I know it's a big jump, but the sales have been coming in over and above what these values are, and we're gonna take a hit. So I think the tax rates will go up, the exemptions will drop, and the equalization rate's dropping to that. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, from what I've seen over the last 3 years of what was been coming in to Canton, it just doesn't surprise me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else? Thanks, Cindy. Okay, and you got the animal control report and economic developers report. I don't think I missed anybody. I need a motion to accept department head reports. Beth, the second, all in favor? Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Okay, committee reports. I'll get rec out of the way right now. We did not have a rec meeting due to illness. So. What I have to report. For the committee.
You're my agenda.
She has a huge agenda.
Oh, it's only gonna be longer next time.
Who's next?
I can, well, Barb, do you wanna start with,
Sure. Economic Development Committee, we've been working, we're almost done. We're really done the first draft of the CGI script, gone over that in detail, and I'm sure you'll get to see a version of it before we finalize it. Because we debated a lot of individual words along with a lot of concepts, but we're getting there. And I think everybody's feeling good about where that is. And then Anna and I and the mayor went to the NICOM conference where the big talk, and we talked about this in economic development too, was housing, because the governor has proposed a very far-reaching housing proposal that is going to affect, well, in effect, it will let the state override your zoning laws to, if you deny a developer that they think could bring some much needed housing to your area. So two things. for us, it's a little murky on what it would mean because it's not like we have many, developers busting down the door to try to build housing in Canton. I think, because of our size and location, it wouldn't be a huge number of housing units, but there's a lot of uncertainty about this. And of course, it hasn't been through the sausage factory yet. So this is her proposal. It's part of the budget. It's going to get, who knows, beat up, changed around, denied. It could, but there was a lot of angst, especially from places south, down around New York City or urban areas, because will be a lot of pressure on them to build things. So I don't know if you want to add anything, Anna. It's a little vague on how it's going to exactly affect us. And I guess we need to wait and see what the final thing is, but.
The effect on us was supposed to be, if it went the way it's written, is an increase of 1% for our community in a 3-year block. Correct?
Yes.
So
Yep.
that would mean about 19 new housing units
Housing units, right.
over a 3-year period. And then they've divided it into a couple of groups of 3-year periods. If you happen to live adjacent to the MTA, you gotta have 3% increase in housing. So it's huge for some of the areas next to the MTA.
Huge.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take away.
No, that's. I also was gonna sort of add to that, and I guess the other thing that I was gonna say is that, I think there's some issues with her proposal as it relates to, butting up on local control. Having said that, the fact that this is a priority could be good for us in a couple of ways. And this is part of our discussion in our economic development committee meeting, because housing, we know from the market study that was done when we were doing the BOA, the Brownfield Opportunity. That Brownfield Opportunity, I don't know what the A is, but anyway, when we were doing that and we did the marketing study, it really did identify, at a fairly high level, so not quite the granular data we might like to have, but we did identify the fact that we have housing needs all along the income scale in Canton. There's not enough affordable housing. There's not enough housing for seniors who are maybe ready to downsize from the big houses. And there's not enough housing, professional income level housing in Canton, especially the housing that comes with, not the upkeep and rehab of a 1850s house. So, we know that housing is a need. We know from our conversations with the Economic Development Steering Committee, that, for example, the hospital lets us know that they lose doctors, they lose healthcare providers, even ones that have agreed to come here, that then very quickly leave, very quickly, within months, turn around and leave because they cannot find the housing that they need. So we know that housing is an issue. So the fact that this is a priority for the state, however it ends up shaking out, does mean there might be some, there's gonna be dollars, probably not nearly enough. But there's gonna be at least some, dollars prioritized that if we do some planning work, might be well positioned to take advantage of. So those are some of the conversations that we're having in economic development and that we're going to bring to the Economic Development Steering Committee, as we're, sort of thinking about priorities. We had begun a housing strategic plan that had gotten kind of set aside due to other priorities, but now might be a really good time to return to that. So gives us an opportunity to talk about these things and see what we can do to improve the housing situation in Canton.
So how was that conversation impacted by the
the legislation of having all electric in your bills?
Well,
They-
I mean,
You know, they didn't even get to that. I mean, I think the main concern was the
Yes.
overriding of local control in zoning.
Yeah.
And, you know, and basically all the, you know, communities that are not in my backyard for denser housing, mixed income housing, these are all requirements as well. And, you know, they've succeeded in maybe not allowing that kind of development in their town, and it's going to be a lot harder to do that.
Sure.
That's a different, you know, we have sort of a different problem.
Right, but that does impact cost.
The
Yeah.
standards for electric and what you're talking about energy is a little bit different. It's all in our proposed budgets,
Right,
so.
but
It's
all in new bills
Sure.
by 2020.
Right. Well, a lot longer than that. At least 25 into 30.
I think
35.
30. maybe.
yeah, I think there's actually some time, like,
There's room.
there's a
yeah.
phase, there's a.
It's all phased in.
Yeah.
Because that's a concern of a lot of citizens as well.
But I think Barb said it correctly that, you know, this hasn't been through the sausage factory yet.
Sure.
So we'll see how it's made. Coming out the other end.
The other thing, for economic development was just to say, you know, you got Lee's report about, you know, grants that are, you know, that she's continuing to work on. We are also working to schedule debriefs with, the various agencies and, yeah, folks to understand with the, you know, the DRI, the New York Board, the LWRP, these other grants that, you know, we've lost out on this year. And some of them for many years in a row.
Yeah.
To try to understand better what, you know, what's the metric by which that they're being measured, so that then we can have some sense of where, you know, where we're falling short. Barring us falling short, I think, you know, certainly, you know, at NICOM and such, you know, we were trying to talk to folks to get a sense for how people are building the relationships, marketing their projects, trying to figure out, you know, the successful
What's the secret
communities.
sauce?
Yeah, what's the secret sauce there? And honestly, I think some of it's, I think it's relationship building with people, so they understand clearly what your projects are. Yeah. So just to say, we're working on that, so that with the next round of grants, whether it's about housing or energy, or, and certainly all the infrastructure stuff coming out, we're as ready as we possibly can be in as good of a position to try to get some of those this time around. That's everything for economic development.
Next.
But I'll just keep on rolling here. So communications and technology, we meet next week. We are going to and continue to work on the social media policy. We didn't have a chance to talk about it at the joint meeting that was canceled, so we're gonna keep trying to work on it back and forth between boards in the meantime. And then the other thing was to, you know, just to, yes, we know the website is a problem. I mean, I'm not sure, it's a problem for both citizens and staff. So we're aware, we're incredibly appreciative of the number of hours that our clerk's office has spent trying to find you know, stuff that has disappeared or recreate it. We understand that the in the latest return of the website, all of the media files that were nicely organized and categorized and very accessible are just one giant blob. You know, so we, you know, I think at this point, we're just trying to shoot for what is the best next thing, rather than spending a lot of time trying to fix. So, because there's not a lot of fixing at this point, we really need to start over in a certain kind of way. So that's communications and technology. Infrastructure. We have a couple of items on the agenda, but if I can just kind of give a bigger picture right now, then when we get to those items, they will likely make sense, hopefully. And Tim and Klaus will help me if I misspeak. So the secondary water source project, that is on the agenda to sign, so we won't talk about it. That's $1,917,000. We do have the funding for that, through grants and ARPA funds. So yay, that, okay, victory short-lived, let me tell you what else we have going though. So our remaining water projects, which have to do with, our water towers, our transmission lines, the loop, the loop, all of those three, well, it's really four, but those three projects are going to run us somewhere between 14 million and 16.4, depending on some decisions that have yet to be made and prices yet to be gotten with respect to the water tanks and replacement versus repair. That there's still some stuff to be decided there. But we're closer in terms of understanding those numbers, and that's pretty much where we're at on the water side of things. We also have, in terms of sewer, wastewater, we're looking at the vac truck that we need. That's the one sort of hard number that we have at this point. That's $545,000. There's also some, we need a generator, and tonight we are going to be discussing an agreement for design and engineering for the lagoon liners. Right, that's the right one. Yes, which that agreement is budgeted for, but that agreement will then yield us the dollar figure that we expect to be significant, put it that way. That's sewer. Then we have the stormwater. We do have one, no, it's already been signed. We already agreed. Yes. So
No, you agreed to the Cleveland.
We agreed to Cleveland Ave,
Cleveland
which
Ave,
is in the works. They were out surveying that today.
right?
Yep,
So we're.
Judson,
Judson is
Judson
the
Water.
one that,
the drainage.
we're going to discuss for tonight, and that, we're going to discuss tonight. Both of those agreements at some point then are gonna yield us the numbers on the stormwater. We know that Cleveland roughly, super roughly, is gonna run us in the 800,000 to $1 million. So I get, what's that? So, all of, and I think that's all of it. So, we're looking at, some pretty significant numbers, but the good news is we're getting there. I think where we're at now is we really need to, get our attorney to, instruct us in the bonding process. We need to understand our limits. And we can start to put things, together and move forward. The last thing I want to say is that Stiles Avenue, we have the grant for the design of potential shared space out there, but specifically sand salt storage. Now that we have settled the matter of Thompson Court, I think we're really ready to proceed. I spoke with the deputy supervisor, and I think we're going to be meeting shortly to develop the scope and get moving on that.
That grant is a town grant.
It is a town grant. I think that's all for it.
Okay.
Next,
Complete Streets is meeting with the Clarkson crew that helped us with that Court Street study. And next week, and so we'll be developing some ideas, some definite improvement ideas for Court Street that we'll bring to you all next month. And Sustainability Committee, we're continuing work on our climate smart community certification and our clean energy community. Both of those certifications would potentially make us eligible for grant funding for things in the future. And we're within, I'd say, a month or two of having those certifications. So I'll have more update next month. We're making progress on in both those areas. And that's about it.
Anyone else?
I would just say, Klaus, is anybody, I don't know who got the invitation to go to the 2-day workshop in March.
Mhm.
And if anybody, I don't know quite who they sent that to. I think, Mike, you probably got one. I can't think of the name of it.
Oh, adapt, right. I'm not sure.
If you want to go, we can make arrangements.
No, wasn't saying I wanted to go, but,
That went out to quite a few people, got notice of that, and
okay,
far fewer people have signed up to go. I think there's about 20 to 30 people signed up. I'm not sure, like, Tim, you were signed up, but you have another conference you're going to. Yeah, and I'll be going. Mike, are you?
I'm on the list. We'll see how that.
did Ann initially tell us that they were only taking 40 people?
Yes,
Okay, and 20 was the threshold to have it.
right, that's
So-
correct.
And it sounds like they've met that then, maybe?
I think we're close to 20. The last I heard from Ann is we're close to 20, yeah.
Got it.
There's a pre-meeting coming up on this thing.
A pre-meeting meeting?
When is that?
It's on the
That's-
23rd. There's something I have to do on the 23rd, has to do with it. I don't,
Is that a Zoom or in person, Mike?
some sort of Zoom meeting. I don't know, I got something
Oh, okay,
that I'm supposed to attend.
okay.
It's a meeting before the meeting,
Like a planning meeting.
I
for-
guess.
Okay.
Any other committees? Okay. Moving on, communications and information, the county legislator is not here. I got a complaint today about our fast charger. About it not working.
Yep.
And I talked to Klaus about it and see if he could crank anybody up, so,
I talked to DC. They just finished scoring the grant applications and we're in the running. We should know in another month whether we get the grant funding for a new fast charger. And I am hopeful that we get that, which would give us a real fast charger, about 3 times as fast as the one we had that's not working.
well, anything would be 3 times faster.
Yeah, it's a million times faster. Are you kidding?
I also talked to somebody, we're gonna try to fix the one that we have. And just be able to use it as a plain charger, like it won't communicate to charge point through the cloud. That's the problem, is an electronic problem. And if we can just fix it, bypass that system and be able to use it as a charger, that would be a plus. So we're working on that while we're hoping to get a new charger that will be much faster. So both things are in the works.
Okay, just want to let you know about that.
Thanks.
Okay, old business, 64 Main Street. We extended the purchase agreement on it so that Eric could work out some of the final details on closing. We're within striking distance on that property being transferred to the town and the village. 19 minor, Restore New York grants, 2 grants were applied for. Now we're in the waiting period to hear where that's going. Contracts, the purchase contracts on the property are, the final one's just about wrapped up. Couple of details left to be worked out with Colin, but we're like right there. So we're about ready to move forward there. The next item, the attorney to represent the village in solar negotiations. We were able to work those details out with the town. I met with the town after their meeting. And we talked about where we were at with that. So there's no conflict, no ethics problem between attorneys. So we went ahead and signed the contract with Buchan. Buchan and Sutter. So that is proceeding. We're filed, had filed our intent with Ori's. And a couple of people have signed up. I got a notification that another group, I think it was a group that they had a petition going. They've signed up with Ori's.
Concerned citizens.
Yeah, I don't know what the name of it
Yeah.
was, but they've signed up, so. Process will continue on here as they file, we'll file for funds. For him to help pay him, that will cover the cost of him representing us. The town and the village, we're pretty much in the line on what our interests are, concerns are.
And am I correct, Mayor, that maybe our next meeting, he will come and join us?
I would like to have him come and join us.
Yeah.
It was a little too quick to do that this
Right.
time.
In
But
a
I-
joint.
No, to join
No,
us.
To join us.
To meet us, to introduce himself. I mean, we've met him on Zoom but to, you know, maybe hear some of our concerns, that's what it's.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So in March.
That's the fun. Okay, community choice aggregation update, I think. Is there anything more to talk about with that? We got it covered.
I think we're, the next event is on the 19th at 4 p.m. And then the one after that is March 8th. At 7 p.m.
When do we make the final decision here on moving forward?
And not till late spring or summer, like
Okay,
they have to go out and gather bids and figure out the market. Then they'll come to us and discuss with us what their recommendation is, and then we discuss it and decide what we want to do.
okay,
I would say maybe June, July,
Mhm.
around that time, we'll be discussing that. Or be till then.
okay.
And if I could just say that, you know I hear people in the community are talking about this, so I would really just, urge folks to attend one of these meetings. To see the presentation, be able to ask the questions, the more that we can answer questions ahead of time. The idea, we'd really like to be able to do that.
I think all the things that are scheduled now going forward are Zooms. Do you think that Peggy would be open to recording her presentation with those slides and we could put it on the website and then people could, at least the slides were very helpful.
That's
And-
an idea.
And
I'll
then,
run part. That's a good idea.
and then
I'll
we
ask-
can say to people, if you can't do the Zoom, you can at least see the presentation.
Yep,
And if you have questions, follow up with us,
that's a great idea.
Ask a technical question. Are we hosting Zoom or are they hosting?
Nope,
They're hosting.
They're
the
hosting
upcoming
the Zoom.
If they're hosting the Zooms, they're gonna have to record. We won't have that opportunity and then they have to send us a file.
yeah.
So if that matters,
Well,
I would
we-
say just record it outside of a Zoom. Just have her do a TikTok, for God's sakes, or have the slides available as with her they can figure out how to do it,
Mhm.
or YouTube or something. So we could just have a link to,
I mean, it's, that actually is the easiest mechanism to do.
We can host it. We recorded today's information session, so if they are in agreement, and I don't know why they
We
wouldn't
could
be,
use that.
we could use that.
okay,
And
that would be great.
we
Yeah, I
can
think
just
that's-
put it on our YouTube and
Yeah, is that readily doable from
it
the
is
Zoom
absolutely
file? Yeah,
doable.
great, great. Well, I'll run that by Peggy, and if they're fine with that, we'll do that.
Great.
And
Great
then we
idea.
could just send people to the website. They can watch it at their leisure. It answers a lot of questions, so.
Absolutely. That's,
It does. It
That's what
does.
we'll
I
do.
think that makes a lot of sense.
Great.
And sorry to. interrupt
it'll
you,
just
I
make
just
it
understand.
more available to people, because
Right, right. I mean, because people, I mean, you're gonna have to be really interested to, go
Yeah.
out of your way to do a Zoom to see this thing. I just think they're gonna get not a lot of participation.
Yeah,
so.
not many people have managed to do it.
Well,
Absolutely.
and it actually. Some populations are not tech savvy and they don't necessarily have the access to.
Yeah.
And that's true with it being on the website too, so. I don't know.
Well, there is a mailing that is going to go out. So after this initial 60-day period, everybody's gonna get.
Every
a
Canton
mail,
resident
so
will get a
that
letter,
will-
will get a letter in the mail.
Good.
And that letter will have web links on it and phone numbers on it, and they'll have an open phone line where people can call in, which will happen a lot after the letter, like in their other communities. That's when massive phone calling happened, when
Yeah.
people got their letter today. What the heck is this?
Great.
Okay?
Yep.
Next item was the social media policy. Did,
That's just,
a placeholder?
we're gonna, we can table that for maybe next month. Perfect.
If we have to move forward on our own, we can do that.
That's also a possibility.
We're looking forward to it.
So, okay, table. Next item is the comp plan update. That's been talked about before. We were supposed to take care of this at our joint meeting, but it's not gonna happen for a bit. So, the town did approve working with us to update our comp plan, something that we should be doing on a regular basis. The town will join us in this, and the other village will not. So the monies will be split. It's an $8,900 contract that will include meetings, coordination, and then some implementation work. I don't know if there's anything more to discuss. If we were prepared to do it 2 months ago.
Absolutely.
So it's a $4,000
Yeah.
expenditure.
I think this is a really good thing to have, some folks, first of all, who are very familiar with us.
Yes.
But also to really, help guide us and, point things out to us. Yeah, it's gonna be really useful, so.
Absolutely.
So I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Bye.
I,
Any opposed? Okay, moving on. New business. I need a motion to authorize payment of vouchers and transfer funds.
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Anyone opposed? Approved fire department member David Witherhead. He's back and joining us again. Any motion?
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Anyone opposed? This is a good one. Discuss story walk proposal.
love it, love it, love it, love it, love it.
I think there's a lot of support for it. They have done a temporary one every year. And they wanted to make this more of a permanent fixture. I know Tim has seen the plans and the thoughts about this. And some of it will fall on him. This is appears to be fully funded by through the library.
I would be interested in Tim's thoughts, because it is work for him.
Yeah, the supplies, the funding for the
He'd be
supplies.
excited. Yeah.
But Tim and I have talked, and he will have some contact with Bell White too about it. But Tim, anything that,
Actually, we're already working on cutting some trees out there and making space because I can't have these right on the edge of the actual trail. They need to be set back. You plow during the winter.
Right.
So I don't want to make more work for ourselves, clean them all off first either. So, we're gonna work on the area. Immediately, we're gonna get that kind of brushed out here since we haven't had a lot of snow action going on. So it's a good time of year to do it. And,
some of those ash trees that are coming down too?
yeah, summer ash anyways, which the DEC has pretty much said,
Right.
you might as well go ahead.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a liability at some point.
Yeah.
So, we might have to build up gravel off the edge of the trail a little bit here and there where these are gonna be placed. And then, we'll probably have auto rental involved in that. Above and beyond what they had said. They're covering the concrete, and we'll probably use wood chips that we will have readily available. Maybe I'll put fabric down and then put wood chips down, because there's gonna be maintenance there that need to be trimmed around. A lot of times, Megan, people are out there in that area, so they might even be her crew for everything through there as well.
Are we concerned about like poison ivy or anything like that?
Well, that's kind of why I wanted to clean these areas.
Yeah.
You know, give it some space, not just tuck it in the woods, so we're actually gonna try to,
It's an educational thing. You get it once and you.
yeah.
You learn to recognize it
right,
the hard way.
Yeah, and there's parts that's out there too, like Obi's mentioned before,
Yes,
so.
that was.
We've been working on control of some of those invasive species and that's part of a spraying program that we do a couple times a year too, so we're working on controlling those type of things. I love the idea. I think it's great. I've seen what they've done before. If we can make it work. Yep, great idea.
Absolutely.
Anything else you want to add to this? Or it's okay if I give Val the thumbs up?
Yeah, 100%. Oh, goodness. Love it.
Okay. Like it.
100% consensus.
Huh?
100%.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Secondary water source engineering agreement. That was an update. Anything to add to that? This is the final piece. No, this is the final piece on the secondary source. The numbers are a little flexible. Depending on which direction we go on construction inspection. Is that correct?
Correct.
Based on what the demands are by our grant holders.
The cost in this is for full-time inspection, 40 hours a week, and since they'll put that in there because of possible funding sources, sometimes drive that, they'll actually indicate you need to have this full-time inspection. So I'm leaving that number at that max amount. But he's indicated that if that doesn't end up being required, that our inspection will, I think it was around 80,000, 85,000. We're gonna be more like 45,000.
Okay.
So
We're just being proactive,
yeah,
making sure that we're overestimating.
don't want to come back and ask.
Appreciate that. Okay.
So this is what's gonna get everything started with that. Sign this, move this ahead.
Which is an important part. We have this virtually 100% funded, you know, it's gonna be very close.
It's gonna be close.
So,
Exciting.
I'm sorry?
It's exciting.
Yeah,
That is.
okay. So any other questions on this contract?
When does it start? When are they starting? Are we gonna start? Sorry.
You gotta know when your job kicks in.
Well,
Yeah.
the money will be partially funded, you know, through grant and the ARPA funding that we have.
Great.
So, you know, if we have to pay any upfront costs, the ARPA funding will be the source of funding for us. That exists today. And that was the plan to spend $550,000 of ARPA funds on this project, matched with county funding and Northern Border Regional grant that we received. So that's where the source of funding will come from if there's upfront costs. Now, the inspection piece is going to start.
So
Construction,
yeah, that's
so some of the planning will come out of this.
So what do we need to do to move
I
forward?
need a motion on the contract to move forward. I'm sorry.
Did you get all you asked also when this
When it was gonna begin.
Yeah.
But
So,
it'll be when it's construction.
Oh. That's,
There, you
I
still have,
in the air.
we still have to go through bidding.
Yeah.
The
Final
final
plan has not
plan.
been done. So this
This
is
will
the
start that.
beginning of all that. So,
Final design. The plan, bidding document, bid award.
and then construction.
And then-
So,
Construction.
I mean, I doubt it's gonna be an issue. I don't. I wouldn't want to get everybody's hopes up. A lot of it also is supply chain for equipment and that kind of thing. It's just- Everybody knows
But
that.
several months.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Okay, so you have a motion,
So moved.
can I have a second?
Yeah, both of us, so.
We got any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone? Very good. Okay, the next item was the wastewater treatment plant evaluation.
So,
This was a Barton and the Judas.
yes. For
This-
15.
This is the beginning
Mhm.
of planning for the liners.
Right.
Would you say the liner?
The liners.
Liners
The
plural.
lagoons.
There's four lagoons.
Okay, got it.
Fun
That are
stuff.
really important.
You know, Carol was really into this stuff.
Yeah.
She's really missing it.
Yeah.
Shoots for today.
If you want to today, if you want.
Yeah, she is.
She should have come tonight.
We could offer, you know,
She had other plans. I already talked. to her.
offer her an opportunity to come back.
You ran that by her.
So this is for the evaluation of what's existing out there now. And then they'll give us some sort of path to choose essentially after this, and then that'll give us costing for liner replacement at the head gates out there, the valving, none of that works adequately. So to replace that, there's airline leaks underground. There's piping issues in between the lagoons also needs to be replaced. I mean,
Well,
and
when we put divers in, that was the real.
it's to design a new leachate and septic receiving area. So, you know, all of our honey wagons, local area go there and they pay us to take their septic. Well, the area we have is not very adequate, so it's to redesign that as well. So that's part of this head intake area.
This is really exciting stuff.
Yeah.
It's.
My old dog almost took a dive into one of those lagoons once. We were walking on the golf course and there was a back gate that was not secured and he was, you know, he wouldn't come, I'm sure the ascent was just delightful to him. And then the next thing you know, the truck comes out from the building and thank God, because he was right close to the edge. I thought, oh my God, if I have to bring him home in my car after he dives into the lagoon. Anyway,
Trunk. The answer would have been in the trunk.
no, I think we would have walked, actually. We would have just bit the bullet and walked home because yikes.
Well, you know, there's a lot of ducks that like to spend time out there, so we get along quite well.
They would.
Ecosystem.
Anyway. When would this be rolled into our budget or how?
This I was planning on doing immediately.
Okay,
Excuse me.
is your funding in the,
Yes, there is.
okay, so this is, right now it's funded.
This is the right now. budget.
You've already talked to boss.
Just send it.
Wow.
Okay,
Just,
Okay.
for engineering, yes.
okay,
So all of this is original to the build, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Which is how many years old?
25,
27.
27, oh, that was close.
94.
But I thought it was interesting, the report you sent us, Mike, on the county's evaluation
Yeah.
of like to build a central plant for some part of this process.
Right,
When Kraft left, that reduced the volume that we had
The
budgeted
effluent,
for.
the-
So that's
That
gotta have
was-
helped the longevity to some extent.
That was planned for 4 million gallons a day.
Yeah.
Down to 1 million gallons a day, maybe a little bit more depending. So, yeah, we've never cleaned the solids out of there. It's,
Like my camp at Trout Lake, I owned it for 18 years before I had the septic system pumped out.
Well, this, they go out in a little dinghy and they measure the depth of the solids in there, every year. And they've never had to clean it, so. So that's
the
where
results
we'll
of this will be very useful to us then as we, move forward for.
Planning purposes, like where are we at? You know?
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so I need a motion to approve that contract.
So moved, I'll move one.
Okay, second. In favor?
Aye.
Aye, you want to vote? Okay. The Judson Street drainage analysis. Did I miss anything, Tim?
No.
This was the next step in, between the evaluation of, Cleveland and then the ongoing drainage problems we're having associated with Cleveland, coming down Judson, down to Court and then on. This is to give us a sense of what we're up against, and to allow us to do some planning.
So this would include the intersection between Judson and Goodrich.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be a
Takes that
new
whole-
hydraulic study on the whole neighborhood.
Perfect.
That whole drainage area.
I
Is
know.
anything that's going that direction,
I know.
gonna be included into it, right down to the river.
Okay.
This contract's for 30,000. This is what I'm looking at, probably putting into this year's budget.
We do not have the funds currently.
Okay.
So approving this would be contingent on next year's budget.
And when would we
Well,
want to
the
do
only
the study?
downside to that then is. We won't have to, then we're waiting until next year to get the numbers that we need. For the overall project.
So it's still gonna take them quite a while to get this done.
Sure. Right, even if
So
we
you're-
try to
yeah.
go forward.
You're not gonna go forward this summer. The engineering work and the study work will be done this summer. We just don't know what we're facing. Where
No,
the
that's
the
what I
problems are. So I think we can plan on this for our next budget year. It's not that far away and that's the time to do it. So even if we approve it, but they can't get started until. Well, you wanna approve it now, you wanna wait?
Can I just add into the fact that, I personally was on that intersection, the Goodrich and, Judson intersection. When Mr. Cotenhour was measuring, and I've got video from that, it's really bad, so if we can move. Like if we have, when there's floating there, it's not good. So if we can move on it as quickly as possible, I am in total support of that.
But this is the study that will
And,
tell us
yeah,
what we need to do.
right,
You know, there's not much more we're gonna be able to do.
I understand there's a
This is done.
timeline and a time frame, but
We know it's bad down there. We've all seen it, so.
But if we don't do the study like right now, I mean, if we do the study right now, will we need to put the money for the fix in next year's budget?
I don't think we'll be ready for that anyways.
We'd be ready in time for, if you're trying to do bond.
Yeah, we're not in a position at this point.
Okay, so it doesn't really matter.
I mean, they've got quite a bit of work to do, and I don't know that they would do it this winter, so.
can we do it? Can we approve it?
That's their split.
Yeah, under contingency and sewer, we've got 60,000.
Well, storm sewer, storm drain.
That's not.
No. it's a- it's a contingency.
You have,
I already.
so you have consulting, there's consulting funds on the sewer side,
Yeah, that's.
a contingency fund.
Contingency.
That's up to you guys.
We can move contingency to take care of this. So, if you approve it now, we can move, number one, you're gonna approve moving contingency to cover this. And then you're gonna approve the contract.
I make a motion that we do both of those things. Do you need separate motions? I make a motion that we move contingency funds in order to pay for this.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
I
Anyone opposed? Okay, now,
I move that we sign this contract.
I will second that.
further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Well, we're doing a lot of work and anticipating a lot of work on infrastructure, and that's important.
It is important, and it's
Yep.
huge,
And
and
it's gonna be important for the future, so.
Needs to get the.
thank you for the work.
Our community resiliency, sustainability, our ability to, attract, development. I mean, this
It all
is-
hangs together.
it all comes together under that, the infrastructure,
Yep,
And that's
gotta have.
bones, exactly.
a really important.
G, approve Joe Mastro for hire as a police officer.
I will move that.
He was interviewed and is currently in the academy. And, Chief, dressing nicely on background and other
Yeah, his
things.
background is so easy, it's, yeah, one of the really nice ones. Doing very well.
He's very personable, and I think that he's very invested in the Canton community. He's grown up here, he's worked in, establishments here, he knows people, and he really wants to be part of a team that helps protect their community. I was impressed with his interview, and I'm excited for him to be part of your team.
Doing very well at the academy, so he's currently in this academy. So. It's gonna build up some more.
His start date will be dependent on when the chief can line up, the rest of his background.
The second exam, which is gonna be all of now. This is well.
So we're a little ways out, but we'll start with all that stuff.
When he's done with the academy too, that,
It'll be done in May.
right,
We're using Sergeant Chief.
So I'll add to this, but second on that, you made the
Second.
motion. Okay,
Second.
any further discussion on him? Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed. Basil's leaving in March.
yeah.
And we're gonna schedule sergeant interviews for next week. Wednesday, it looks like Beth and I sit down with the two candidates.
Okay,
And then there's been a list asked for his replacement in the numbers. So I don't know, if you've gotten, how many you've gotten back, but there was 3. So once we've got 3 letters back from the list, then we'll be looking at where we're at there.
Yes.
We want to get the sergeant piece taken care of first. That has a lot to do with how scheduling will work going forward. And then, the last replacement will be looking for. So that's kind of why I wanted to wait to get that done and then update on that, so. Last item on here was budget sessions. Do you have any, you don't have any dates yet?
I know, but as soon as I get everybody's dates, it'll be quick.
I know there's vacations. Out of town, stuff like that. Let us know when you're around.
I've got like bones, but I want to make sure that there's none of those scheduled.
and
To do it time, 6 o'clock, because that seems to be a good time for everyone.
yes,
6.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
we'll propose some dates and Sally's already sent out, the surveys, department heads, they've probably started working on some of their information. So that's part of the process.
So months of the rest of this month. March and April.
So, let us know what where your roadblocks are. And get some things scheduled. We can be flexible. So, good, okay. Public comment, is there any public comment out there? Public comment? Public comment? Okay. Perfect. We will go into executive session. And I need a motion for that. We want to discuss employment. Second? Second. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, thanks for coming, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
We need a quick break, anybody? We're making good time here.